Hey there folks, my name is Cypher, average Nintendo superfan, and totally not a wannabe Scott the Woz.
Help.
And I need to confess something to you. I am unironically and incurably in love with A Hat in Time. For the gameplay. Now, I'm a big fan of games that are diabetically sweet on the outside and punishing on the inside, kind of like taking a bite out of a chocolate-covered ghost pepper. At first you're like, wow, this is great, I'm having so much fun, this is delicious, and then the next minute you're in the ambulance explaining to the EMT why you're such a bitch. A Hat in Time has this in droves. We're talking about a game that gives Mario a run for his money in the gameplay department, while also letting me just do this at any time. I need insulin help. Personally, I didn't grow up on 3D platformers like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. I did dabble with them as a young aspiring artist during the PS2 era. I guess I played a good bit of Spyro for the PS1 using the PS2's backwards compatibility. Pretty sure Spyro Year of the Dragon counts as a platformer anyway. Anyway, by the way, just letting you know, apparently playing the PS2 now counts as retro gaming. I hope your day is as ruined as mine was when I found this information out. Anyway, I got into video games post-N64 and PS1 era, right as the PS2 dropped, which means I missed out on a lot of games like Donkey Kong, Banjo-Kazooie, and Banjo-Kazooie, and the like. Hell, my first experience with Mario 64 was on the Nintendo DS as a teen, which is still like my favorite version of that game, by the way. You can fight me about it. I always enjoyed Spyro Year of the Dragon and Mario 64 DS, of course, but I really stopped playing games like that during the 360 era. Playing 3D platformers wasn't really cool anymore. Year of the Dragon was out, preteen angst and crappy shooters set in every possible variation of generic Middle Eastern countries were in. I'm not a fucking nerd. I can't play Mario Galaxy, Mom. I would prefer my ass to remain unwedgied. Thanks. No, it was only as I grew older that I realized people are more interested in your political alignment and what genitalia you prefer in your mouth than they are about what video games you play. So all those years of trying to force myself to play FPSs were really a waste of time, but I'm getting off subject. I've grown a bit irritated with modern gaming culture and developer practices. Half-finished games, open-world everything, re-releases of re-releases, beloved franchises being destroyed with no regard to the fanbase, and corporate fuckery that seeped its way into everything good in the world, from games to cars to bacon sandwiches. Over the last few years, I've found myself becoming disinterested in gaming because of this. I tried to replay some of my older games in my collection like Fallout New Vegas, Half-Life, Mario 64, and so on, but slowly I realized that not everything I was crazy about as a kid held up all these years later, like Mass Effect 2. I'm sure I'll catch some flack for that one. A lot of these old games haven't gotten better with time. A combination of issues such as lack of reasonably priced consoles to play them on, emulation issues or software incompatibility, media decay like disk rot and connector pin failures or CPU solder joint breakages on Nintendo carts, shrinking pools of controllers and proper TVs to play them on, and headache-inducing frame rates means these games just don't get along with a lot of people like they used to. Over the years, you get so used to 60 FPS at minimum, or the right stick controlling the camera, or even just opening up Steam and clicking launch on a game you want to play, that when you're forced to use the shoulder buttons to control the camera in Mario 64, or you have to watch a choppy cutscene in Mass Effect, or clean the laser on a PS2 disc reader, it begins to feel a bit more like being a scribe taking care of records of ancient lore rather than playing a video game. To me, this makes these games more frustrating to play than I care to deal with most of the time. Of course, this isn't the rule for every old game necessarily. Some games have been kept alive pretty well all these years and still feel pretty good to play, especially like the old Ace Combat games, which have had their controls standardized since AC5, or like Fallout 1 and 2, which is largely navigated using the mouse and a few hotkeys, and they've been preserved on half a dozen different digital and physical storefronts by now. Or, you know, the Pokemon games, which are just timeless somehow, and run well on everything from emulators to calculators. More still have remakes that fix issues with the games, like the entire Mass Effect trilogy, or even communities that keep the game on life support through mods and bug fixes, like, you know, every Bethesda Softworks game from Morrowind to Fallout 4. However, the vast majority of these old games haven't been treated as well. A large selection of the games you probably grew up with are on the verge of being lost to time because you don't matter, and neither do old games because they don't make money anymore. The second the old PS2s start dying of old age, your only source of PS2 games will be piracy through PC emulators, and that sometimes just doesn't work. That's a video in and of itself though, and I should get back to the actual topic of this video. Last year I found myself purchasing a Nintendo Switch. because I've lost all self-respect. Actually, I bought 2 because I have no self-control either. But hey, the second one is a cool white OLED model that I overpaid for because scalpers want to watch the world burn, so that's great. Help. To go with this overpriced Android tablet with bad controller attachments, I bought a copy of Mario 3D All-Stars to break it in, because I was familiar enough with Mario 64 that I was comfortable starting up there. And let me say this, I think the Nintendo Switch might have saved my interest in video games. The convenience of the Switch, along with the massive number of ports and new titles I'd never had access to before, brought back the wonder of walking into a Walmart, looking in the gaming cabinet, and randomly picking a game to find out if it was any good. 16. I played most of the way through Mario 64, some of the way through Sunshine, and then all the way through Galaxy, of course, before grabbing Super Mario Odyssey and playing it through in nearly one sitting. And boy, let me tell you, I got addicted to Odyssey. I spent more time than is probably healthy just doing the optional moons. Before I realized it, the credits were rolling and I was out of things to do. So I grabbed a copy of Breath of the Wild and all of its DLCs. I played through that a bunch of times. Then I grabbed a copy of Okami HD on sale. Hell, I even got back into Pokemon, a franchise I hadn't touched since Pokemon Emerald. And let me say this, I might have gone a little bit overboard because I am nothing if not autistic. Here's a picture. But it was really 3D platformers that grabbed me and pulled me back in. I really think playing Mario Odyssey saved my interest in gaming. I finally recaught the bug, and this time it wasn't the coof again. I guess I was really just needing some fun, easy to get into games to blow off some steam from the past few years of constant fuckery we've all been experiencing. Such as, severely mishandled Fallout 76 to Cyberpunk 2077's fuckery, the 15th re-release of Skyrim, that sort of thing. I wanted something fresh, something that required a little bit of skill, but not necessarily so much skill that it forced me to sweat my tiny little testicles off. Something that was more about the journey than the end of the road, 3D platformers like Odyssey fit this bill perfectly, at least in my opinion. Odyssey was never going to be enough, though, and soon I began to look for more games to feed my newfound soy addiction. That's when my friend Nisox from the Crappy Gaming server, link in the description, bought me a copy of A Hat in Time on Steam after I expressed interest in it during a voice chat. She, of course, demanded I do a playthrough on Discord stream and a review, so I did, and I am. And since then, true to my roots of overdoing everything, I've played through it about 3 times on Steam. Yeah, about 3 sounds right. Before even starting to record gameplay for this video, I bought myself the DLCs and even purchased a physical copy of it and all of its DLCs for the Switch, so that I can play it after the time-traveling space commies microwave the power grid and leave us washing our bad dragon dildos in the creek with a washboard. Or, I can trade it around and let other people play it just because, whichever happens first. Pretending I have friends. Right from the get-go, the game sets its tone via your character flying out of bed like a cat bursting out of a kitchen cabinet with a rat trap stuck to its tail. And with no time to waste, it introduces you to the main conflict. See, your spaceship's power source, glowing hourglass-like things called timepieces, are sucked out of your ship after a brief run-in with the Russian Military Space Warfare Division, who has violated your NAP while attempting to quote-unquote denazify your spacecraft. After Putin's right-hand man himself liberates your timepieces from your vault via a special military operation, you yourself soon follow, flying out of your ship's window and plummeting down to the planet below. Also, holy shit, this child has never skipped leg day in their life. Damn. Anyway, the town you land in is quite literally called Mafia Town. Yeah, Mafia Town. Imagine if you played Ace Combat 8, Buffalo Wild Wings of Freedom 2 Electric Fuckaloo, and you found out you were fighting a country called Chemical Warfare Genocidistan. Like, gee, I wonder if these guys are the bad guys. Anyway, what follows is a story of friendship, betrayal, disco, and good old lighthearted organized crime. A Hat in Time is one of the many games on the market these days intended to be funny and that cutesy sort of weird Adventure Time style humor.
Oh my gerbs! Jake! Let's help these candy orphans! Hey kids!
And somehow, in my opinion, it's one of the few that doesn't overstep the boundaries of funny into the realm of cringy. That's a hard task. Other games like Borderlands don't even bother. They just rip right through the border between funny and cringe with no air support or GPS, with an invasion of terrible jokes and annoying references, and pretend that in and of itself is funny. Managing to keep the tone fresh without abusing it is quite an admirable feat from Gears for Breakfast, as a man can only take so many "LOL guys, did you know that Claptrap is annoying?" jokes before the suicidal depression sets in.
Claptrap beatbox time! Check it!
Somehow, nearly every piece of dialogue in this game is adorable and hilarious, from signing a binding contract with death so that you can be his mailman, to Hat Kid freely and openly admitting to a violent murder with a psychotic and unblinking grin on her face. The characters are all likable, and Hat Kid has a surprising amount of charisma for a character that largely just stands there silently and unblinking with a disturbed grin on her face. Because of her silent nature and proclivity to get herself into trouble, as well as her perceived disregard for others and strange ideas for solving problems, everything Hat Kid does is like the humor style of Mr. Bean. If Mr. Bean was an emotionally damaged child with a magical hat, a lack of parental guidance, and a fucking gun, she is on the surface a very basic character whose sole personality trait is kinda being a dickhead. A heartwarmingly adorable dickhead, of course, but still kind of a dickhead nonetheless. Under the surface, though, she's surprisingly complex. She talks about and shows her emotions and feelings through journal entries in the secret room and cutscene art. She expresses curiosity at the artifacts she collects and grows as a character throughout her interactions with people she meets, even risking her life to save her former enemies turned friends that she's met along her journey. A Hat in Time story is very simplistic and even predictable, and it's by no means a masterpiece in writing, but it does quite well with what it has, even managing to be kinda touching at times. As for gameplay, you simply hunt down your missing timepieces throughout various levels, completing puzzles and using parkour and your reflexes to fight enemies and collect items. It's a really simple concept as old as the platformer itself. You travel through windy peaks, dark forests, movie sets, and even Detroit, all to collect timepieces, and then you use those timepieces to open new doors on the ship to finally reach and defeat your arch nemesis, a creature so vile she scares even the most hardened mafioso, someone who violently executes dozens of people for simply annoying her or getting in her way. This weird Australian girl with a mustache. You start out each level with several objectives, starting out easy on every world and progressively getting harder as you near the final level in each world. You'll go from delivering mail in a spooky forest to running and hiding from a horrific nightmare creature intent on killing you for trespassing in her home. I did not sign up for this. Please help. Every world is then topped off with a boss fight that ranges from a side-scrolling battle with Vladimir Putin himself to a 3D battle arena where you fight a haunted toilet that's been possessed by your own soul. Man, that was a string of words that probably nobody has ever said before. The hat system, for which the game is named, is a pretty interesting reimagining of Mario 64's hats. As you progress through the game, you collect a yarn which lets you craft new hats, each of which gives you a different power. From making intangible objects, well, tangible, to turning you into an ice cube, to making you sprint. And although at times I felt like there were too many hats, which had the effect of making finding the correct hat to use for the situation without opening the weapon wheel style menu a little bit of a chore, it never really took me out of the game so badly that it annoyed me. Probably because only one or two, maybe three of the hats are actually your main hats, while the rest of the selections are for very specific encounters with enemies or to unlock secret areas. This is, as previously mentioned, either intentionally or unintentionally reminiscent of the hats in Mario 64. The hats that would make you fly, turn into steel, or turn you invisible so that you could progress through certain parts of the game. However, in A Hat in Time, this is the core mechanic of the game and can be used to drastically alter the movement of your character through the game world. Speaking of movement, the controls are really simple. Jump, dive cancel, and attack with your blue umbrella. Where things get interesting is in combos. You can run up walls and catch ledges, you can dive on enemies to damage them, locking onto them like a homing missile, you can get speed boost by diving and canceling repeatedly at the perfect times, and much more. On top of all of that, you can change the gameplay up at will with the inclusions of badges, which physically pin onto your hat and change the functions of said hat and the game around you. These badge powers range from turning your sprint function into a motor scooter, to firing a laser out of your umbrella, to giving you a grappling hook that can latch onto things in the level and help you reach new areas. It takes a long time to wear yourself out on this game, and if you do, the game switches things up with the DLCs via the Death Wish mode, which runs you through levels from the vanilla game with the difficulty turned up to 11, adding bonus objectives and handicaps as well as a time limit, and of course the adorable Peace and Tranquility option screen. I never used the Tranquility mode because I ain't no bitch, but the screen is really pleasant, so I spend a lot of time just watching it. As for music, it may as well go without saying. I mean, there's really not much to break down here. The game's got some real bangers, some of which you've most likely heard used in the backgrounds of YouTube videos everywhere. I mean, just listen to this. gosh, Stiefel really knocked it out of the park with this one. Performance-wise, it's rough, but I don't have a lot of complaints. The game controls smoothly with no delay even on the Switch, and controls well with both mouse and keyboard and controllers. The camera controls are good from the start, but are customizable enough that I can't imagine anyone would be happy with them. They can even be inverted for you weirdos out there. Yeah, I'm calling you out, Hop. If I had to be nitpicky, I'd have to mention long loading times on the Switch and a lot of frame rate drops here and there on both versions, especially after the most recent Christmas update. It didn't really affect my playthrough much at all, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. I mean, after all, what do you expect from a 2017 game made on Unreal Engine 3? Not every game can be perfect, you know, like Pokemon Violet and Scarlet. Anyway, the DLCs add in 2 new worlds, one being a short adventure on a cruise ship that will never sink, I promise, with dozens of adorable little fluffball seals, and another is set in Japan. Just normal Japan. It's nothing weird here at all. Honestly, it's kind of strange how normal Japan is in this game. Also, you become a street thug and get a cool hat. That's fun. The DLCs also add in the aforementioned Death Wish mode and Vanessa's Manor, which is a multiplayer hide-and-seek type game that I can't really speak much about because as of this review, I've never been able to get into a game. If you do see footage of Vanessa's Manor in the background here in this part of the video, lucky you, I got it to work. One of the first DLCs added in a multiplayer mode, where you can explore the game's world with a friend or strangers and complete tasks. It's cute that you can emote and bounce around the game world with friends, but it's way too limited. Both players appear to be playing in separate instances of the game world, and it leads to a schizophrenic nightmare of an experience when you can see your friend fighting invisible enemies. I would have liked for multiplayer to be a little bit more expansive, which I guess is what Vanessa's Manor is for, but as I said, as of writing the script, I have about as much experience playing that DLC as I do with leaving my house. Ugh. Multiplayer as a whole feels about as tacked on as my mention of it here in this script, wherein I only remembered that multiplayer existed after I had already quote-unquote finished the script and sent it off to a friend for review.
Uh-oh, Luigi. It looks like you cut your barrel off to 15.9 inches. Now the ATF is gonna shoot Yoshi in the face.
Oh, Mario, this is terrible.
Anyway, despite its multiplayer woes, I've gotta say, it takes one hell of a game to keep my attention all the way through, much less all the way through multiple times in current year +2. Hell, I paid $120 for the new Pokemon games because I overdosed on Soylent, and have yet to finish one of them, and it's been 3 weeks since that game came out as of writing the script. And it's not because I think the game is bad, but because if I'm not having the time of my life, I'd rather play something multiplayer or ancient. I'm really picky about games I finish, which is why my Steam profile has more than 300 games and counting, and yet I've played like maybe 20 of them, and only 5 or 6 of said 20 are played for more than about an hour. Oh boy, Steam sale is on again. Time to buy another game I'll install and forget it's on my hard drive while I play Fallout New Vegas again. I think probably the coolest thing about this game, though, is the fan creativity factor. This game was a Kickstarter game funded by fans of the genre in a time when those weren't really known for getting off the ground very well, and yet somehow it crawled out of the development pit a lot of these games fall into. Being carried forwards by fans of the genre from the very beginning, it's only fitting that the game would be open for the players to mod for themselves. There's a whole room dedicated to accessing levels made by other players. They make it so easy to import a fan-made world that it's almost seamless, and it extends the life of the game well beyond its own campaign, providing potentially limitless fun. I have a great appreciation for a game that is both well thought out, fun by its own merits, and yet is open to letting the players create their own fun and potentially destroy the intended experience, be it through mods or through alternative playstyles like in RPGs. Not a lot of games are doing that these days, and even fewer are brave enough to go above and beyond like this, and that fact is honestly depressing. Mario Odyssey has a fantastic modding scene. Players have modded in Mario 64 worlds, multiplayer hide and seek, and co-op modes, and all sorts of other things. And yet you can't just throw mods into Odyssey without Nintendo smacking you across the face with a ban. Games are all about one and done experiences now, and any replayability comes from simply wanting to play the game again, not from curiosity for other endings or playstyles. Hell, even RPGs in the last 10 to 12 years have forcefully railroaded you into making the same choices regardless of how you play the game. In many games, the difference in playstyles and dialogue choices results in what is essentially the same endings with a different coat of paint. And I think the suppression of player creativity is what has driven a lot of gamers away from modern gaming. And it's why games like Morrowind, Fallout 2, and games like that have unwavering fan bases that have a hard time enjoying new games in general, not even mentioning how they feel about sequels to their own favorite games. They feel like gaming has gone downhill, and a lot of that has to do with a lack of creative output in mainstream games, I think. It's admirable that A Hat in Time not only allows the player to present their own ideas, but even encourages it and deeply supports it at its very core, and it's made with that support in mind, and I think that will submit A Hat in Time as a fan favorite for years to come. Overall, I'd give A Hat in Time a perfect 2 baby seals saying egg. If you disagree, fuck you, come kiss me about it. I spent a little over 50 hours on this game, including re-recording, so in my opinion it's priced perfectly for the content that you get at roughly $35 with all the DLC, which you should buy regardless of what platform you buy it on, because the DLCs add a ton of new content and it's a lot of fun. Except Vanessa's Manor, don't buy that, it's broken literally all the time and adds no single player content. Even better though, the base game goes on sale pretty often for $20 or less. If its current price makes you sweat, wait for a sale and snag it for $15 or so, and then grab the $10 or so worth of DLCs. But I'm of the opinion it's well worth its asking price at any price. That's gonna do it for this review, but I'm gonna throw in a little channel update here at the end because it's been more than 9 months since I posted here last. I had to stay with my sister for about 3 months because her car got stolen. I caught COVID back in February and was down and out for over a month, and then after I got over that, I lost everything on my hard drive due to my PC failing me. Despite all of this, the last video on Daggerfall did super well, absolutely demolishing my average view count and skyrocketing my subscribers. I don't know where the fuck all you people came from, but hi. Nice to meet you, holy shit. The channel passed 100 subscribers, then 200, then 250, then 300, all in the time it took me to get back on track and start this video. That's fucking insane to me. That's more people than I went to high school with, out here in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. I know that's not all that crazy compared to the millions or billions of subs some YouTubers have, but it's still pretty fucking mind-blowing to me that nearly 200 real-life human beings found my videos entertaining enough to subscribe themselves to regularly viewing my torturous destruction of the English language. Not only that, but most of the comments are really nice and friendly, if a bit hard to comprehend at times. I know that's subject to change at any point because not everybody likes or will like me or my style of video making, and I expect due to my nature of being a bit abrasive, it will probably change eventually, but it's really nice right now to see the positivity in a time of my life where I can really use it. Oh, and the swanky custom URL is nice too, check that out. So I guess what I'm saying is thanks, and I'm glad to be here doing something I enjoy. This is mostly just a hobby for me, but having other people see it is a huge plus. It was never my goal starting out, though. I can't say I'm gonna release more regularly, because I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but I do plan to expand somewhat beyond the scope of just video game reviews, and I am going to work on more projects at the best pace I can. For example, right now I've got like 3 scripts written that I'm working on at the same time, and 2 or 3 more where I'm still, finishing the editing and writing for it. But anyway, I'm going to continue to work on more projects at the best pace I can without hurting myself or my editing style, and hopefully I'll improve a little as I go along. I hope you guys understand I can only take so much Sony Vegas before the rage of my ancestors slips through the cracks in my dry humor facade and I start using the Wii remote with no wrist straps and sticking forks in the wall sockets. Oh, and just letting you guys know, I have another much older channel that recently got its own custom URL, where I've spent the last 5 or so years uploading things like gameplay, stream archives from my Twitch channel, and lightly edited videos that I made mostly to practice my editing skills and learn new techniques. It's definitely not the same style of video as this channel, but if you want to check that out, you can find it at youtube.com/CaptainCypher. The link will be in the description if you're interested. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video that I don't delete the script for out of frustration. Bye!